All right, now we're on the record, so thank you for all attending here on St. Patrick's Day. You could be, at a bar somewhere drinking green beer. So thanks for coming here. Want to say thank you for Manny, who was on his way, I believe, and for providing lunch. And Michael Gaffney is the GRC chair this year, but due to all the storms and issues, PG&E called him away to another part of the state until next week. So I am filling in. So my name is John Valians. I'm former GRC chair and now the vice chair of external operations for the chamber here. And I am the COO of the Modesto Gospel Mission, and glad to see a lot of new faces and a lot of regular attenders. And so let's go around the room and we'll start with Cecil and just introduce yourself and give us a little where you're from, what you're doing.
I don't have time. I'm Cecil Russell. I've been around for a while. So right now my project is feeding museum.
Hello, I'm Diana Ruiz Del Rey. I'm the Public Relations Officer for the City of Modesto. And I'm happy to finally be here in person.
My name is Jessica McCann. I am the new external director of marketing for Sierra Venture, who's a became members. Very happy to be here as well.
Welcome, thank you.
Stephen Qual, leader of California Cities and Chamber Board member.
Yep. Congratulations.
Steve Madison with Stanville.
Kirsty Boyette Zacharias, Executive Director of American Leadership Forum and the Chamber Board Chair. Can we go right here?
John Mensinger, American Lumber Company.
Yeah. Over here, the two gentlemen. Harry.
Terry Johnson, Labor and Industry Chairman for the NAACP.
And to your left.
Linda Erncorn, and I'm with World Financial Group.
Thank you for joining us. We're gonna go over here, Councilman.
Nick Bavaro, President of Farm Leadership Board of Benefits. That's the City Council of this group.
Thank you.
Justin Parkus, representing Assemblymember 1 Alamance. John Beckman, Building Industry Association.
Todd Aronson, CEO, Visit Modesto.
Dana Ferrer, regulatory analyst for Modesto Irrigation District.
All right, and online, we'll start with Amy.
Okay, hi guys. Amy Carroll, Chief Communications Officer for Golden Valley Health Centers. I oversee the Government and Community Affairs Department for GVHC and will be filling in today for Jan Millette.
Thank you, Keenan.
Keenan Crick, CEO for Second Harvest of the Greater Valley.
Peggy.
Peggy O'Donnell with Mid Valley Promotions and on the Chamber Board.
Jessica.
Jessica Godden, I'm the Executive Director for Stanislaus Partners in Education.
Great. Craig Lewis.
Craig, are you there? Feel free to pop in when you can. And I'm Trish Christensen. I'm President and CEO of the Modesto Chamber of Commerce and more meetings, sir.
All right, and Manny, thank you. We thanked you for lunch before you got here, so thank you, and good to see you in your Irish garb today.
Manny
Yeah. Great. So we just want to approve the last meeting's minutes. If I could have someone move. And
I'll
second.
move to approve.
Okay, Dana moves. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Cecil seconds. All in favor, say aye. Any nays? All right, thank you. So now we move to reports. And so the first report I have on my list is the City of Modesto. So anyone here, I heard someone from the city.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
So I wasn't prepared. I was just checking in, so I didn't bring anything.
All right, that's great.
Ask away and I might have answers.
That's
for you.
great.
It's an opportunity for you to offer anything that's current going on. You don't have to bring anything for that. It's just if you have something that you want to update the people on. And if not right now, it's okay. Okay.
Nick, do you want to add anything from this council perspective.
A couple of things, the forward together committee is reviewed by the club committee, so that you'll have that convenient here in April. Measure H committee is in the process of making the selection of that committee members. Last Tuesday, the city council passed 7th Street Village development, which is low income housing, 79 units. So council is really focusing in on downtown or entertainment, housing, and commerce. So we're making a big push on that approach. Council members work well together. We're all focused in on our priorities, which is safety, economic development, homeless, and several other issues. So that's pretty much in this. Oh, we bought an airplane too, yeah.
You could have left it.
But, and actually, the airplane's gonna really be it's part of our public safety push for Modesto. The police chief tells us that the airplane will have 6 police cars on the streets, and it will be monitoring not only traffic, but if there's an activity, they can actually zoom in on the license plate, and it's just going to enhance our overall public safety pictures.
So I mean, are you saying you're gonna be buying it all day long?
They probably in the beginning about 20 hours a week. And the pilots are going to be, I don't want to use the word contracted, but kind of like a 1099 employee. Okay. And so they're not going to be on the city payroll. That's going to be contracted. 1099 and probably be like retired highway patrolman, that kind of person.
All right, next, we usually do Stanislaus County, but we'll wait till, because Manny will be presenting. So, Justin, do you want to report?
Yeah, sure. So from the assembly side of things, Assemblymember Alanis has had the opportunity to really push his message that he promised during the Pennsylvania Trail to both sides of the aisle. Because of that, we've had the opportunity to get 4 bills passed through committee in the last 2 weeks. 3 of those being public safety related, and 1 being a bill to provide lifetime hunting and fishing licenses to Gold Star family members, so commemorating families of veterans. Right now, Juan is attending the funeral of the husband of Patterson City Councilwoman Jessica Romero, who tragically passed away in the last couple of weeks. And he's excited to be attending the multi-chamber mixer this week. So we're excited.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that.
All right, so for the state senate, is there anyone here for the state senate? All right, Bob, do you want to report for Tom McClintock? I'm not prepared to say anything. Okay. I've never seen that before.
12 pages there.
Yeah.
So the 18 months, okay.
Yeah.
Congressman Tom McClintock introduced 6 bills that started with 118th Congress. HJ Resolution 9, the Solemn Pledge Amendment. HJ Resolution 10, by that veto constitutional amendments. HR 186, which is the Water Supply Committee Coordination Act. Congress says droughts are nature's fault. The water shortages are our fault. The HR 188 Forest Management Act says the excess timber comes out of the forest in 2 ways. It's either carried out or it's burnt out. Those are basically your choices. Dr. Tom McClintock held a House hearing in Yuma, Arizona, to look at the price on the border. Unfortunately, the Democrat Party decided not to participate in that. Most people, a lot of people don't think there's a crisis at the border. 3 million people coming across the border, and you really don't know who they are. Also, We believe if you don't have a border, you don't have a country. I spoke to the Natural Resources Markup on Thursday, 3/9. At that markup, he also voted to advance HR 1335 Westerman, a comprehensive energy and permitting reform that will be included in the energy package expected on the House floor at the end of March. This for me, I'm not here. We also voted on the floor here of legislation to classify information related to COVID's origin. I think all of us need to have that. The information. You saw what it did in businesses, how many people lost their jobs, and you probably lost a ton of membership if people can keep their doors open. It'd be nice to find out where it actually came from. And he also has a bill to withdraw troops from Syria and a bill prohibiting federal employees from using their position to advocate or engage in censorship. We also voted in favor of HA Resolution 27, which repealed the Biden administrative waters of the United States rule, WTS. And at this point, turn it over to Christian, we have this conversation.
That was perfect timing.
I know.
Chris Santos from Dr. Boyce's office. And HA Resolution 27 has been one of our marquee efforts. It was one of the top issues that Congressman Duarte campaigned on. It pertains specifically to the Water of the United States certification that's supposed to, cover canals, main waterways, rivers under the Clean Water Act. That was passed back in the 1970s. And Congressman Duarte's had the unique opportunity as a Stanislaus County farmer who also had property in Tehama County that fell under Florida's jurisdiction. He made the argument to the broader American public and why we should care about such a measure or such a resolution overturning this interpretation, because he had vernal pools, in his case as small as 16 square feet, or as he puts it, the size of a Thanksgiving card table, that were under the jurisdiction of being a federal wetland. So he made the argument in press conferences and the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee markup and on the House floor that this is a rule that threatens our nation's food supply, opens family farms to harassment, litigation, and that it can exacerbate inflation at a time when food prices are already crippling the budgets of working families all across America. We're also able to make the argument to the American people that at a time of threatening global food supply due to war in Ukraine, one of the largest wheat producers in the world, this ROTUS interpretation will make it harder for American farmers to switch their cropping systems and effectively removes millions of acres of viable farmland for food production system. I'm very happy to report that HA Resolution 27 has passed the House. I believe there was a vote of 227 to 198, and there was bipartisan support. So we were going to see Congressman Clintoff, Valadale, and Congressman Lamalfa, but also Congressman Jim Costa down in Fresno and Congressman Jenny Panetta in Monterey across the aisle to work with us on this measure. It's now in the Senate's hands. I believe we already have the express support of all 49 Senate Republicans. We're going to have to see where it goes from there. And this resolution has had the support of the National Farm Bureau, NFIB, and of course the Stanislaus County Farm Bureau and Farm Bureaus all across California as well. So we've also been attending listening sessions. Recently, Congressman Duarte traveled to Dallas, Texas, with the Western Congressional Caucus. They had listening sessions with the farmers and ranchers, the cattle industry, as well as we have a farm bill this year, 2023, and we're going to be doing other listening sessions all across the country as part of that effort. And both the Transportation the Infrastructure Committee on the Western Caucus and the House Agriculture side, which is also in Waco, Texas, just this week. So we look forward to making sure that all of our voices are heard, especially in the Valley and 2020 farm bills.
Great, thank you. And for MID, Dana?
I mentioned it at the last meeting about some water right bills, and I am currently in the process of working with different agencies to create a 4-page informational handout that I will provide to the chamber once it's complete. I'm also working on getting some letters prepared for everyone. So kind of like a cheat sheet where you just fill in the blanks, because these bills are extremely detrimental to MID, the city, county, businesses. There's a bill to change for anybody to challenge our water rights, and it's incumbent upon us to say whether or not we have the right to prove it. There's one where the state water board can issue curtailments without any due process. There's ones that they can divert our water without in any sort of year, no emergency order. And I mean, it's craziness at the Capitol right now. So we need all the help we can get, even from the League of Cities. And just getting everyone on board, because if you think you're not impacted, if our water rights are infringed on, you're sadly mistaken.
All right, thank you.
If I could just report last night,
Yeah.
a lot of the electeds were at the event, Annie and MID. Basically, she was sworn last night at Marie Gill, and Alvarado, and there's about 125 people there. And the bipartisanship, you can sort of feel that people want to work together to get some things done. You know, I mean, you get more things done with cooperation and confrontation. Really good. Glad that I had a chance to attend. I'm glad that I saw a lot of civic, hopefully, Congressman Wardy attended also, and petition there. That was really good, really good event.
I was there as well.
And they have their offices hopefully open on 10, 20, 15th Street. They're open right now. They'll have a ribbon cutting. And they're on the second floor. We're Congress. We're just going to try to sneak in on the first floor. Should know that in the next couple of weeks.
I believe we're hosting that ribbon cutting or participating in it, so a calendar invite will come out from my office when we're scheduled.
Great. All right. Let me read a report from Michael Gaffney of PG&E, couldn't be here. Basically, I'll read it verbatim. Approved distributing the California climate credit as soon as possible instead of the annual April timeframe. And the governor recently requested an investigation into wholesale natural gas companies, so more to come on that. So, Stephen Qualls, League of Cities.
Do you have a report?
I do.
First of all, Dana, you want to help, you have to get our name correct. It's the League of California Cities, okay? So you're asking for help, okay?
We're in California, I figured you know what it was. Right.
So I'm not gonna cover this whole, my report. The legislature
Is it this one?
is new. And, so I'll hit
Sorry,
the high
Stephen.
spot. If you say anything on this report, I can send you a copy of this if you'd like. If you say anything on here that stands out, please let me know. And I can go ahead and fill you in further. There you go.
Is it this one?
There you go.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Uh-huh.
So as you know, the governor just dropped, I wanted to remind everybody, it's a proposed budget. It's not a budget yet, so there's gonna be a lot of negotiations. You're gonna have to go on between the legislature and the governor, especially with the downturn in the revenues that were previously expected. So there are some comments there that he did provide $176 million for COVID. He did slide the workforce program. They did pay down the state unfunded liability, but unfortunately our local jurisdictions, cities, counties still have their unfunded liability that they're going to have to look at addressing in the future. He carried over $8.6 billion for drought levies and flood risk. The drought doesn't sound very important right now, but obviously we're good with their cyclical climate the way we have. That's something that's good here. The cannabis with the taxing structure changed last year for manufacturing and sales of cannabis products. Local jurisdictions are looking at losing quite a significant amount of funding. And so we provide $600 million for to backfill that. And they're earmarking a lot of that for local enforcement and tax collection. Currently jurisdictions are having a hard time collecting the tax that they're due from them from the manufacturers and distributors. So this is the highest number of bills that were introduced in 10 years. There's a total of 2,632 bills. The problem with that is that 40% of them are what they call placeholders or intent bills. So there's still a lot that's going to be happening as the legislative year moves on. SB 251. Let me back up to the Brown Act real quickly. So when the governor stopped the emergency order, a lot of things went into effect. And one of them was the ability to be able to meet remotely. I'm on the Stanislaus County Cities Advisory Committee board, and we only have 2 members left now. And the other 7 cities don't have any representation on that committee. And you can only meet twice, in person can only meet twice virtually, because of the Brown Act, you have to publish the address of where they're meeting from. Well, with the emergency order being removed or stopped, now that they can only do that twice a year. And so we lost one of our members from the board. And so there's legislation looking at making advisory committees different than elected committees, because a lot of them, like, the disability board committee and stuff like that, those people can't make the long trek it takes to get to the meeting and be there in person. So there's legislation So that's something that's affected by the governor's. So SB 251, this says an elected official, if you work for elected official, you can't run for office and be elected to a public office if you did not have that position before the 31st of December 2023. That does not apply, as usual, it doesn't apply to state officials. They never put themselves under those laws that they make.
What's the impetus for that bill? What's the impetus for that? I mean, something happened somewhere that caused somebody to go, oh my gosh, man, what's the background?
You know, I don't know, and I'd like to, like I said, we just learned these bills. We just had a legislative briefing from our lobbyists on all these bills. That's where I got these from, so I don't have the behind that, but exactly, you're probably right. Something happened somewhere.
It was down south.
Okay, good.
It was down south. I can get you the details. It was like, congressman hired the mayor as a field rep, and there were issues. And then like a city council person was a district director, and they were having issues as far as votes and thinking that the positions were influencing votes.
Okay.
I just can't remember the city, but it was pretty widespread.
The city of Bell, by any chance?
They're all in jail.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, I'm gonna be nothing against the new.
Is the proponent of this Newman, is he Republican or he or she Republican or Democrat?
I don't know. I can look that up.
Yes, Democrats, it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate. But
I just mentioned because, you know, the Democrats would never do anything, pass any law that might result in political advantage for them, so I just was curious.
and remember that came from him, not the lead California State. So AB 799, this is of our concern. So this is the accountability for homelessness assistance and affordable housing. And the problem is they want to set up performance metrics to judge the programs by both city and county wide. The concerns are that we don't know what the metrics, what's working. I mean, obviously what we're doing now isn't working. Homelessness just keeps getting worse and worse. And it's possible loss of funding for jurisdictions if they don't meet these metrics. So please, we need to know, first of all, how do we meet these goals and how do you set these goals? And then please, then we're having, the cities and counties are doing everything they can to address homelessness. And so we need to have some kind of, you know, proven program that works before we're going to be held for our feet to the fire.
You guys support that one?
You
support that one?
I don't know. We probably haven't taken a position yet. But most of these have not gone to our policy committee just because they've just been dropped. So a lot of these are watched right now.
Okay, so I'm very familiar with this funding program. Recently, the Board of Supervisors approved us for this funding. And one thing I would like folks to understand is the legislature creates the rules for these funding programs. And oftentimes they are so onerous that nonprofits like mine don't even want to take the funding because there's so many administrative requirements and other requirements that we don't have the capacity to meet all those requirements. Point one. Point two, they get pushed out the door and cities and counties who administer the funding have to get up to speed like that. And there can be mistakes because of how quickly the funding's pushed out. And so we see a reluctance in government officials to fully embrace the programs until they understand them. And so all of this leads to the fact that housing isn't being constructed, yet there's quote unquote billions of dollars out there in funding. So I don't want to monopolize the meeting. I could spend hours on topics like
So
this.
Steve, you would think this is a good idea then, right? Madison, this legislation is a good idea?
I would have to read the bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
So AB 1708, just want to let you know, there's a lot of bills out there that are addressing Prop 47 reforms. Some member Longus has one that was just amended. Originally, it was going to completely repeal Prop 47, have to go back to the voter, but he amended it to where they're going to do I believe it's saying the Bill Hoover Institute is going to do a study of business owners to find out how Prop 47 has affected their businesses, which we are saluting at, and we're probably going to support that bill now. It's been amended. Fentanyl, there's also a number of bills proposing that manslaughter charges be levied against the seller if the buyer dies. I didn't know that, that currently with DUI, thank God I've never had a DUI, but a seller has been given documentation of the dangers of fentanyl beforehand, you know, after when they're convicted, so they know the possibility of what they're doing, which they probably should already know, is that somebody could die from their product. And then also there's a bill that would hold people who administer Narcan not liable for civil damages if they administer it to a possible overdose patient and something goes wrong. And this way they can't be held liable for doing so. It'd be 742 if you're interested. You would not be able to use, police would not be able to use unleashed canine to apprehend a suspect or do crowd control. Let's skip over to AB 3, although AB 1447 is from Senator Flores' office. AB 316. So this has to do with prohibit the operation of an autonomous vehicle with a gross vehicle weight of over 10,000 pounds on public roads for testing purposes or transporting goods or transporting passengers. So I know there was a bill last year or maybe the year before that they said the same thing, that there has to be a human on board the autonomous vehicle when it's operating. And at that time, it was a move by the union to make sure that they preserved the union jobs. They were driving doing the public transportation. I don't know what's behind this one. I said the legislature is still new. EV charging stations, they're starting to get some money out for that. AB 1383, so that everybody's maybe familiar with that. That's when it requires the cities and counties to divert organic waste from their landfills. And the problem with it is that there's not a lot of facilities to be able to process that organic waste. So last year we were able to secure League of California Cities was able to secure $180 million for local governments. And so the Cal Recycle is going to start dispersing those funds to local jurisdictions. And then you want to do law or lie with me? This is my little game that I play with everybody. So first of all, you can only throw a frisbee at the beach in Los Angeles County with the lifeguard's permission during off-peak season. Is that true or false?
I agree with Dan.
You're correct. It is actual law. In South Lake Tahoe, all ski equipment must be made from recyclable or biodegradable materials.
False.
Okay, I made that one up. I just figured that, you know, biodegradable, tree huggers up there. So I thought, not that I didn't know that. And then Redwood City has outlawed the frying of gravy.
That should be.
Frying of gravy, like biscuits and gravy?
Frying of gravy. If you burn your biscuits gravy, I guess that's considered frying of gravy. I guess.
I'm joking.
So it is an actual law. I assume it came from the fire department.
You've never invited me over.
Guess I'm not moving to Redwood City.
Can you go back to the very top?
Yeah.
Explain that / workforce outreach. What does that mean?
I'm not familiar with that, but I assume that
I'm on the county's workforce development board. And if that has anything to do with what we do, I'd like to know what the heck that is. 'Cause
yeah.
no one's told us.
That would maybe one of our legislators. I can look up. I can actually let me look it up for a minute. I'll get back to you. Okay. Yeah. So like I said, if you have any questions, any of these, please feel free to reach out.
I'd like information on it also.
This is the workforce also. Yeah, I'll send it to Trish and Trish will send out the members.
Hey, Steve, can you go to that federal bill just 1 second?
What's left? Up, there.
No, seller must be given give documentation against the federal. What is that?
Yeah, so I didn't realize they do this with people who are convicted DUI. So if they're convicted of selling fentanyl, they have to be provided with documentation showing the dangers of taking the product and the possibility that they may die from it, and then they can be charged with manslaughter.
The drug dealer's got to be given.
If he's arrested.
If he's arrested.
Yeah. Well, if he's convicted or admits or pleads guilty or pleads no contest, then that would be the requirement to receive that documentation. I assume.
We have 100,000 people in this country dying of fentanyl each year. What we should be doing is educating them to the danger of fentanyl. I mean, we're letting it come across the border, get to that. You're not.
It's kind of like the disclaimer on the products we have in California that say don't, put the plastic bag over your head, you might suffocate. I assume it's just a way to hope to educate them that they won't continue to self-bend. That's the hopes. Sorry.
Steve?
Is there? He's asking.
What can
No,
you?
You can
that's a statement, not a question, right?
So no, Keenan is asking, oh, there is a current case here in Stanislaus County where a seller was charged with manslaughter. Is there more you want to add to that, Keenan?
Yeah, so I think the reference here as far as the bill that's being proposed, there is potential legislation moving forward at a state level to make it mandated that manslaughter will be the charge. In this case, it was a situation where an individual bought fentanyl through Snapchat and from an individual seller, and that seller was charged with manslaughter.
So like you said, they can currently be charged with manslaughter. So I assume what this bill is saying that on top of that, when they will be given information, letting them know. Like you said, they should already know, but this is just same like if you get behind the wheel and you're drunk and you drive and you kill somebody, when you get behind the wheel, there's a possibility you may kill somebody and you could be up for manslaughter. So it's just.
Can you go over that, bill regarding police dogs again?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's saying that, public safety.
We could call it a leash law.
So you can't unleash a canine on a suspect. If somebody's running away from you, you can't unleash a canine to take them down. And if you're trying to use, you can't use them for crowd control. So if you're trying to use canine to control an unruly crowd, we wouldn't be able to do that any further, any longer. We are opposing that bill.
Well, sometimes you send a police dog in to a situation where a suspect is hiding somewhere because you're worried that they might have a gun. So that's a very legitimate use of
There was a
it.
dog adopted just recently. Situation. Who introduced that? Corey Jackson.
Who would propose
Is he out of
it?
Alameda?
He is out of LA County. I'm
San
not sure
Bernardino.
exactly where, but
He must have gotten bit by a police dog.
So our resident expert says it's San Bernardino County.
San Bernardino.
He's a CSU professor. I think who's also a legislator.
Use of the dogs to tire.
Pardon me?
I say there are a few that are trying to outlaw the use of police dogs entirely.
I think they came about because some police departments were abusing it and just letting their dogs, when they apprehend a suspect, they would just let the dog bite the person and would try to control it. So they're more or less trying to get some type of control. So the dogs aren't just biting people and mauling people. That's what they're trying more control with police.
Thought they were trained not to do that. They were trained to take him down and not.
That's what it is.
They need better training of the dogs, as far as I know.
It's a command.
Trained,
It's
and
a command.
it's
So
command,
it's-
so command isn't given, dog's not let loose.
That's true.
But to bite and not let loose are two different things. To hold a person in one place is different than going after him and continually biting. That's two different things.
So it's the officer's fault for not controlling the dog.
Then like, yeah.
Okay.
Training.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
All right, did we miss anybody on a report for governments or? Yeah, all right. So we would like to now for our special guest today, District 4 of the county, Manny Greenwald, Supervisor. Manny O. Greenwald is.
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Manny, you're right there. You're talking, the mic is here for those on Zoom. I'm gonna follow you. I have your PowerPoint. So
And just to remind everyone, if you're new here, we do record this and we put it on the website, right? Chamber website. So.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Manny Graywalk from the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors. This is the second time I've gotten the opportunity to present to this group when being on the Board of Supervisors. Last time, unfortunately, was during the thick of the pandemic and it was on Zoom. I like this setup much better. So a little bit about what's going on in the county. I think that's what the presentation's on, especially how it relates to economic development. So many of you have been probably hearing that we've started a new endeavor for economic development. deriving from the ARPA funds. So if there was any small little sliver of silver lining from the pandemic was the amount of money that came into this community, this region, and into the county. First with CARES Act funding, and then with the American Recovery Plan Act funding, which is the ARPA funding. And that's the most recent. Stanislaus County received $107 million for ARPA funding, the short-term way of saying American Recovery Plan. And so we, as a county board of supervisors, really wanted to stretch that dollar as far as possible in different things, in infrastructure, in economic development, in small business payments or individual payments, and then keep some in our reserves to really see what took off and where we could expend more of your taxpayer dollars. I always say this, and I say this from the bottom of my heart, these are your dollars that we're spending. So we're accountable to you. And for us, it's important to spend them as efficiently as possible, as prudently as possible, and what's going to have the biggest impact for the community, not only in economic development, but quality of life, safety, things, parks and rec, other resources or infrastructure that the county has. Because the county has been such good stewards of taxpayer dollars because of our predecessors, we sit on a hefty county reserve. And I know sometimes the cities look at us a little weird. Being a city guy myself, I used to do the same thing. But it's just, we run a lot of programs, a lot of funding. So the county's budget, just to put in perspective, I know that doesn't deal just with economic development, but having a good sustainable budget is good economic development. Is about $1.6 billion, of which the county's responsible for about $425 million. The rest comes from federal and state funding sources. Of that, the county in last year's budget was sitting on a reserve of about $285 million. So in reporting or people that assess government stability, say that you want somewhere between 3 to 6 months of your operating budget or 18% of your total budget. So 425 million was our total operating budget, not counting state and federal monies coming into the community. We would be funded at about 65%, which we feel is pretty good. Because of that, we made a decision that ARPA funding, rather than what other counties have done, whether it's right or wrong, that's a decision they made. We wanted to reinvest it back in the community, not put it back in our funds or reserves. And so the $107 million, we are spending $50 million on infrastructure. And it may seem like a lot, but if you wanted to bring all of the county pockets, county communities throughout the county to city annexation standards, that's how we judge infrastructure, is if it's to the standards where a city like Modesto, Turlock, Riverbank, any of the 9 cities would say, all right, this is up to our standards. We would like to annex this into our city, because it helps the cities. As land gets annexed, their tax base grows. They get the property tax. They already get property tax revenue, but it's more houses or dwellings or businesses in the city limits. And when we say city annexation standards, that's curbs, gutters, lights, sidewalks, all of the works. And so if we wanted to do all of the county communities to bring them to annexation standards, it'd be about $700 million. So that really puts, I wanted to tell you that number so it puts into perspective that 50 million may seem like a lot, but it's not a lot. It's a small portion of the 700 million that is needed. Where do we get that number? Public Works, every so often, every 5 to 10 years, looks at all that and see what the cost would be to bring them to city standards. So at $50 million, we want to do the easier way would have probably just given each supervisorial district $10 million and call it a day. We didn't feel that that was the fair way to do it because some districts have more county pockets in their supervisorial districts. So we did what we called Supervisors Roadshow. And we went and each supervisor got to invite the other supervisors and staff and pick 2 areas where they felt that the need was the most in that part of the county pocket. My district, since we're talking mostly Modesto centric here, is the airport district and Bystrom Herndon area. So if you're familiar with the airport district and then Bystrom Herndon, you know, right there by the old Save Mart that's getting redeveloped over there. And then everybody did theirs, and then we did a proportion of what the cost would be and how much the funds that we're getting. So for District 4, I was able to get $12 million. And so I spent most of that money, most of your money, in the Colorado Rouse neighborhood, which you'll say, Manny, you were saying that the airport and Herndon were the ones that are affected more. But we were able to leverage the dollars for Colorado Rouse. Colorado Rouse, to get it to city annexation standards, is about $23 million. And so we put $10 million from the county. The city matched it with $5 million. So we had 15. And now we've applied for a state grant for $8 million. And so that would equate to 23 million needed for it to bring it to city annexation standards. Already talking to city staff, they're all in, an alliance saying that once we spend the money, we will bring this into City of Modesto, which makes sense. It's that area right by Muni. We see that there's going to be hopefully some development soon there on the city side. So it was just a good fit to bring the annexation standards to City of Modesto. And that'd be one of the first annexations in a long time. I think the last one was Shackelford, the state. So then now the meat of the conversation, which pertains to all of you in this room, pertains to the presentation, is economic development. So then we as a board decided to spend $30 million on economic development. And this is the first time in probably a long time where that much money has been put towards real economic. I know there's been so many things the chambers participated in, other private industries participated in. This is the first time I think government's spending that amount of money towards economic development. So then we worked with Stanislaus Community Foundation and got private, got public, got local electeds, and created a program known as STAN 2030, short for Stanislaus 2030. And we haven't set aside all $30 million into that. What we started with was we wanted to bring in people that can come in and look at our community and not give us that same like, oh, you need to be more like this community or more like that community. Look at our community and see what advantages we have as a community where we can really spur economic growth. And so we hired the Brookings Institute. They're a nationwide think tank based out of Washington, D.C., probably one of the most reputable economic development firms the country has. And so we hired them. The county gave $500,000 of your money to get them to do a study. And they came and they gave us a full down to the dollar, how much things cost here, how much someone would need to earn to have a livable wage in Stanislaus County. That number came back at $28.58. And that was a number saying, if you reside here in Stanislaus County, you need to make that amount of money to live a good middle class income. And that's with a single household. Then we looked at how many jobs really pay $28. And that's what the concern is. We're about 40,000 jobs short of that number of making that type of wage, where not only are you making $28.58, but there's also opportunity for upward mobility. So there's a career path. It's just not a job. It's an opportunity where 5 years later, you can be making $34 or $40. And then benefits, right? Some jobs, they pay good, but there's not benefits. And we all know that how important with the rising cost of healthcare and other benefits and other perks that our neighbors across the Altamont are able to offer. Childcare, transportation. So a lot of those things, we may not think of that sometimes. We sometimes just want to look at, how much am I making? But there's so many other variables that you might forego what you make in an hourly wage if other things are part of the package, right? And that was very important for us to look at. And those are two of the things that we really, Brookings told us. They said, lack of childcare for working professionals. lack of transportation. You know, what's your transportation? I know we're working, and we've changed our model with Stay in RTA, making it a more regional approach, but still, if somebody lives in Oakdale and wants to work in Patterson, where we're seeing a lot of new jobs being created, how easy are we making it on them to, if they don't have their own transportation, to provide public transportation? So that's where we started the 30 million. The other is bringing a new industry into our area where those jobs can be created. Because right now we're seeing the jobs that are paying that dollar amount is through government or through healthcare. I think registered nurse was the one job that hit that $28-58 where you could be a single household income and didn't require postgraduate work or professional, like even though registered nurses have to go through additional training, but that was the one that we had the most. Makes sense, having 4 hospitals in the region, that's where most of our $28.58 derives from. And so the new industry, again, we told Brookings, don't tell us like we need to do this, we need to do that. Tell us what we already have as a region that we can grow upon. And that ended up being bioindustrial manufacturing. It's already started somewhat in this region. It's already happening in the state. It's already happening in the nation. So we have so many benefits here already. Logistics, you know, whether we're talking almond hulls, brake resins, you know, tire particles, all of these things. And I for a lack of a better term, I'm just saying cheap real estate. Real estate is still significantly cheaper than the Bay Area or other parts of the state, where if you're looking to build a manufacturing hub, it would be a lot more cost efficient to do it here in Stanislaus County. The space is available. You know, we have the Crow's Landing industrial park. We have things going on in Patterson, things going on. Beard is pretty much near capacity. Turlock's a new industrial park. Someday, hopefully, Modesto is an area where they could have business and commerce as well. I know conversations have been had north of Modesto. But looking at those areas to see where we could bring commerce and really unite all of the things that we already have as an industry. And so bioindustrial, we hired Karen Warner. You know Karen, she was chief of staff or district director for Congressman Harder, who represented this area a few years back or a few months back. And so she started a company called Beam Circular, and Beam Circular meaning kind of utilizing what one industry's waste may be, maybe another industry's, you know, secret ingredient to, you know, create dye or create material for denim material, create, you know, again, it doesn't sound sexy, but dog food from waste. And there's already a company on the East Coast called Do Better Foods, a local resident already sits on their board, Ann Veneman, who's the former USDA secretary and the CDFA secretary. She's also on the advisory board for STAN 2030 in relation to biomaterial. They take grocery store waste. They go into grocery stores at the end of the night and all the waste, and they create food products out of it. Some for human consumption, some for animal consumption. But the point being, they're taking the load off of our landfills. They're reutilizing, you know, waste, the carbon footprint, all of that. And that's, be honest, that's kind of the trend that whether we want to engage it or not, that's what it is. Try to get most use out of ingredients that one may not be valuable to one industry, but to another industry. So we allocated $10 million of $30 million of STAN 2030's monies towards bioindustrial manufacturing. We have not spent it all. We've spent to bring Karen on board, to bring a few other employees on board. This is being ran through the Stanislaus Community Foundation. So even though the county is funding this endeavor, it's not something that county employees are doing. Staff is obviously very involved in it, from the CEO's team. Everybody's really involved in it, workforce development. but it still ran through Stanislaus 2030. The board, like I said, Ann Veneman, myself and Vito just met with the current CDFA Secretary Karen Ross. She was just in here about 3 weeks ago. She was really complimentary of that. She was really complimentary. She said, these are things that are going in other parts of the state, happening here now in Stanislaus County. Stanislaus County makes the most sense just because of our logistics, the type of industry we already have here. There's already companies doing it. So Amentus, you guys are familiar. They're the company in Keys, but they're also taking space now at the old Riverbank ammunition plant. And then a company called Divert, which just opened up or is planning to open up in Murlock in their industrial park. So we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just saying, like, look at us, like this is a place where we want it. We've teamed up with the UC Berkeley lab. I called one of my colleagues, Terry Withrow. He actually went and visited the lab with a few people from the region. And the doctor that runs that lab is also now on our advisory board, because she's the one that literally in that lab oversees testing of products where somebody would say, well, somebody will say, oh, I got all this almond oil. What can you do and what can you turn it into? And she's the one that says, well, this works very great for protein bars or, almond milk and things like that. And those companies, she's the kind of the liaison between the companies that want to purchase that product and the ones that want to sell that product. And now we have her on our advisory board saying, well, if you want to take this to scale and you really want to grow this and you think it's a great idea, Stanislaus County is the place to do it, because they have the almond oils that you need. They have the space that you need to build a facility. They have the logistics with I-99, with 99 and I-5 and now 132. So we feel that we're really in a good position. And so that's why we're spending the money incrementally. We don't want to just say, here's $10 million, hell's how it goes. Now, we really want to be on top of it. So we made our initial investment of about $1.3 million, right, $600,000 for that. And then the other thing is things that I told, so that's biomaterials. $10 million is for biomaterials. The other 10 million, which again hasn't been spent, we just passed this Tuesday, $1.3 million is reinvesting in things that I talked about earlier. Childcare, upgrading our transportation infrastructure, and then lastly, upskilling and reskilling our workforce. That one comes to the board this upcoming meeting, which is on the 28th, which is through the CVOC, Central Valley Opportunity Center, is upskilling and reskilling the farm workers. I know there were a lot of requests to just make direct payments to people that worked during the pandemic, and I get it. I sympathize with every grocery worker, every nurse, every firefighter, every farm worker. They kept our economy running during the pandemic, but giving single payments, the federal government's done that, the state has done that, and as a county, we felt it was better investing in reskilling and upskilling people. And you saw an article, it was a great article, the Modesto Bee had a few weeks ago about people that are utilizing the Central Valley Opportunity Center. So the Central Valley Opportunity Center, Terry and I keep bringing Terry and I because we both sit on the executive committee for STAN 2030. So a lot of this, before it comes to the whole board, we get to kind of get a preview of what's going on with it. And then the other board members will see it through staff updates and then eventually at the board meeting. But Central Valley Opportunity Center has it down to a science. How much it costs them to train somebody that wants to become a welder? It costs them $6,300. Somebody wants to get their truck driving license, Class A license, costs them $5,800. Somebody wants to become a medical biller, it costs $4,300. Might be wrong on that one. I think I paid attention to the top two first. But again, they just have a program where they know that they can upskill and reskill these workers. And that's something that's sustainable. That's something that's for the future. You're just not giving them a payment, but you're changing their life. I mean, if you read in that article, there was two people, farm worker, he got the training, became a truck driver, earning $24 an hour, getting closer to that $28.58 that we want everybody to be at, having benefits, having the opportunity for growth. The other person interviewed in that article, she was a farm worker and became a medical biller, now works at a medical office as a medical biller, making probably not $28.58, but more than she was making when she was a farm worker with much better working conditions. So those are the things that we're looking at is utilizing these dollars to better people's lives. So they can not only earn more, but really grow themselves professionally. And so we're gonna be giving $1 million to, if the board approves it. I won't get ahead of myself, that's on March 28th. If the board approves it, $1 million to the Central Valley Opportunity Center to train employees. And when Terry and I met with Jorge, we're like, all right, so for $1 million, depending on which programs, not all of them are gonna go into welding, not all of them are gonna go into medical billing, but just an average. And he told us, I can train roughly 200 people. $1 million. Those are 200 people that weren't going to be trained because they don't have the capacity. They don't have the funding. A lot of their funding comes from federal and state. So the county said, this is the first time the county's funding something like this. So that's 200 other people. And it's just a little chip off the 40,000 we need. That's 200 people whose lives are going to change because they were able to get the opportunity to train in something other than what they're currently doing and earn a better wage. So in that allocation, we're looking at about $8 million. And again, it hasn't been spent. We're kind of watching, it almost looks like we're just looking at which programs really take off. And if Central Valley Opportunity says, yeah, we got 200 employees and all 200 of them got placed in jobs, maybe we come back and say, maybe we could give another $1 million to Central Valley Opportunity. So we're keeping a lot of that in the reserves. And I know to some people's dislike, they might say, oh, why are you guys holding on to this money? But I treat it. And I can pretty much speak for my entire board. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I always treat government money like my own money. For me, it's like, would I invest in something that's a sinking ship? No, I wouldn't. So then why are you reinvesting it with your money, with the government's money? We should think the same way. If something has tangible benefits that we can see, we should invest in that. And the ones that don't, we should be asking the questions that we invested initially with. What's going on? Why aren't we making the difference that we did with this money? So that's how the county's looking at this. So we have 10 million and 8 million, and then the other 12 million. Again, it's gonna be put in our reserves. We're gonna see which projects really take. If biomaterial takes off and Karen Warner comes in with a company that says, we want 1,000 jobs, we want to take place, but we want you to help us with, our fees or reduce our fees or help us with this, or maybe a matching amount, get them here. Okay, then that's a number we can look at and say, hey, if they're going to create 1,000 jobs here, what can the county do to leverage that and get them here? That's why I kind of gave the example of Colorado Rouse, because that's like leveraging dollars. That's what I feel that we should do as a county or as a city to get more money out of the state, the feds, and out of private sector. Because sometimes the decision for private sector, how am I on time? Because I can talk about this guy. I'm a little Stan 2030 nerd. I can talk about this for a while.
Got another 10, 15 minutes.
For us, it's looking at where those dollars are going to be spent. That's going to have the biggest bang for their buck. And that's where we want to reinvest. So we have $12 million in reserves, but it's allocated towards Stan 2030. Well, we're going to put them in reserves. It'll literally be circled around. I just had this conversation with the CEO yesterday. I go, I want that 20 million just to go kind of into, in the general fund, kind of just, and he said it'll be a line item that all the board members will know that this 12 million is for Stan 2030. So that's important to us. Other things, I guess, wrapping up on Stan 2030. Do you guys ask questions before or after? Because I don't want you guys asking questions as
After,
we
but
go.
you're welcome to ask right now.
Yes.
So, are you considering putting more money into the MAD program?
I can beat around the bush and tell you.
No, I know San Joaquin did.
I know San Joaquin did. San Joaquin also, they didn't put any of their ARPA, they put most of their ARPA funding in their general fund reserves. Again, it's a decision they made, so it's a lot different than ours. And so they're kind of, picking and choosing where they spend money, but they put most of their money in their ARPA funds. That's why for the first time in a long time, they have more money in their reserves in Stanislaus County. And I know a lot of the guys on the San Joaquin County board, and I always joke. It took ARPA for you to get up where Stanislaus County.
Yeah.
So at 2850, that's hourly, that's unemployee benefits. Right?
That's hourly. That's an hourly wage without the benefits package, without upward mobility.
Which is $60,000 a year.
Roughly 57,600 or something.
So the companies that are currently doing these biomass, are their employees making 2850?
Oh, for sure, because they're in the Bay Area, they're on the Bay Area wages, so.
I'm talking about the local ones, you said.
Oh, the two that are here?
Yeah,
Mentis and
fees and-
Divert. I don't know about Divert, but I'm pretty certain that Mentis is. Yeah, Divert's just barely coming online. They're barely I think they're starting the construction. There was just an article about them. Any other questions before I go forward? All right, so the other thing, economic development, like I started, is just not. I mean, obviously creating jobs, creating commerce, that's economic development, but quality of life, we feel that that has a huge incentive for people to come here and people to stay here because they want to see what they do outside of their time. That's where you get talent to industry exchange. That's one of the things we're lacking in. That's another thing that Brookings told us, that people are reluctant to come here because they feel there's not enough to do or not enough activity. So your talent level is a little bit deteriorated because talent kind of follows where they want to be, right? And so I think that's changing. I think that's changing with the different things that are coming into the city as far as things for kids to do, things for adults to do. I commend the city of Modesto, projects like 7th Street Village, where those are probably going to be young professionals, because some of that's affordable, but it's affordable. I think the numbers on it were 60,000 for a family of 4. 62,000. Yeah, 62,000 for a family of 4, which still is, a decent wage, but not enough to raise a family of 4 comfortably.
They would put 30% of their to the rent.
Yeah, up to 80%, right? 30 to 80%. And it's a sliding scale. So if it's 62 is 32. And if it's like 23,000, they pay like 80 years. But again, those are people that are customers coming into restaurants, coming into coffee shops. Obviously, I understand that discretionary income is not there sometimes at that dollar amount, but having that type of hub, we're also trying to do something like that. And that's why I'm piggybacking off that project. Is the old courthouse. Well, it's not the old courthouse yet. It'll be the old courthouse when the new courthouse happens. So I'm gonna correct that. But once the new courthouse happens, the county owns 3/4 of the courthouse parcel right there on IN11, right there in Town Square. And so we're already talking to developers about looking at things that we can bring there, whether it's market rate housing, open air markets. A hotel has been proposed in that area for the old jail. I guess this company really does has done things they've done one in San Antonio, and I think in Boston. They take Todd's the person that hooked me up with them, and that was fascinating way of reusing that space, because how else can you use a jail, or what better way to use a jail that now people that were in there involuntarily are going to stay there voluntarily.
And pay you for it.
Yeah.
And it has a helicopter pad on the roof, so it means they can put a bar up there.
Yeah, rooftop bar. So the courthouse project is going to be another big nudge in downtown development. And so 3/4, there's certain parts that are architectural or historical buildings, the record hall, so we can't really do with that. That's why one of the developers he let us put like an open air market where we could still keep the infrastructure. So we're looking at that. The area where the cannon is, that's a historical artifact, so we'd have to develop around that. And then the parcel. So if you're looking at Firkin Fox, parcel right in front, that's still owned by the state. So we're working with the state to let them let us redevelop it and pay a small fee. We have some tricks up our sleeves.
Where that waterfall thing is, that
Yeah,
one,
that area right
that corner.
there. So we have kind of the L shape, so we have all of that going through the courthouse and then the state. When they leave the courthouse, we have first right of refusal. We're gonna act on our option there. And then that one other parcel is the one that we don't own. So we're working with the state because there's a demolition fee that the county or the state would have to pay, and the county saying, well, if you let us have that, we'll take that, but then you also need to give us this parcel. So we got all these little things that staff's working on with the state judicial people that oversee the courts and things as such. So that's another big development that we see happening in downtown in the near future. I mean, the courthouse is going to open late 2024, and And we're already in the process of working with the state to have it ready to go when the new house opens. The other, I started with $285 million of reserves. We're starting to draw some of that down. We feel, the board feels, I for certain feel, and I've made this evident to the CEO, is sometimes as a business owner, when you're sitting on too much money, it's not a good thing either, right? That means you're not reinvesting, you're not reinvesting in employees, you're not reinvesting in deferred maintenance, you're not investing in just investment, just looking at doing other things. Government is obviously a little bit different, but same kind of mindset. At a point when you get so much in reserves, people start questioning, could we do more? And we don't want people to ask us that question because we want to do more. So we're doing a drawdown of our budget. It's a 3-year drawdown, $20 million every year in projects, parks, recreation, libraries, all of the different things in different districts that need it. In my district, I will be spending most of it on the county library on I Street. I feel that that building has been, it needs to be spruced up. It's a beautiful building. I mean, it's the architecture of it, the location of it, but inside, outside, it needs some TLC. And it's our oldest building, built in 1970 something. And it's gotten kind of the patchwork job, but it hasn't got a complete overhaul. So that $20 million, I've already talked to Jody about utilizing it at the Modesto Library. Other libraries, we've been doing other stuff in other libraries. Like if you visit the Perlock Library, it's pretty much done all new. Empire, we just did a new one there not too long ago. So Modesto is the one that's kind of has the most deferred maintenance, but the number is higher than all the other libraries because it's a big building, hasn't been done in a long time. Parks, Oregon Park, we're doing a upgrade. And I'm just keeping it Modesto centric stuff. When you guys have Buck Con to speak, you can tell you about Riverbank Hometown. We'll tell you about Modesto, or vice versa, or any of the other supervisors. Oregon Park, which is my district, in the airport neighborhood, complete overhaul. I mean, we're going to have that is going to be the park to be. New shade structures, new playground, new basketball courts, and the first park in the city of Modesto. This doesn't sound exciting, but it's exciting. I'm just telling you. It's called a Portland Loo. That's the first park that's going to have a Portland Loo. And if you don't know what a Portland Loo is, please look it up because it's not going to sound sexy. But I'm just telling you, Portland Loo is like an indestructible restroom structure where you can ride on it and it just, it's all metal. The toilets are like super efficient. It's like a vortex when you flush them. I shouldn't be excited about stuff like this. That's so that the city can open up the parks with bathroom facilities. That's the biggest concern that residents have is if I take my child, if I go myself and I need to use the restrooms are locked up. I'm sure you hear that all the time. And so this Portland Loo is pretty indestructible. There's only enough space in there to do your business and get out. You don't have room to, really do much. It's got the toilet and it's got a sink right on top of it. It's pretty indestructible. It has the one that we're looking at, it has a self-cleaning mechanism. So they have like little fire sprinklers, or they're not fire sprinklers because can't burn because it's all metal.
Is that like Portland, like the city of Portland?
Yeah, it was invented there.
LEW?
LOO. Nice French way of
I'm gonna
saying
put it up.
It's British.
Yeah, British, yeah. Portland Loo, that's Oregon Park. So it's gonna have the shade structure, it's gonna have the basketball court, it's gonna have a walk path, it's gonna have new playgrounds. Portland Loo, that's the destination, right?
So does it clean after each use?
I think one that,
Is it self-determining? Because
No, you can put a timer on it. So like at the end, at 6 o'clock, say 6 o'clock, it would just like spray everything down.
okay,
Oh, those
So
are in
what-
Europe and you hear
what
the
is the-
water.
yeah,
Exactly.
Cleans the whole thing.
yeah.
what if someone comes in and like just spreads feces throughout the whole,
It sprays it.
The
it's already
nanny's gonna
inside.
knock on the door.
but
Yeah.
if it's on a timer, like how does it determine? Can someone,
Yeah, I'm sure if somebody called and said, hey, there's that, I mean, they'd probably be calling Stan Connect or no, what's the Modesto one? Oh, Modesto, there's your Portland Loo. Right there, that's it, right there. So it's open here. Man, the company should hire me.
Yeah, you're-
Like we hired like.
get a commission.
This is it. And so if somebody called Stand Connect or went on the app or Go Modesto and said there's feces everywhere, I'm sure there's a mechanism where they could do it at a time that's outside of the scheduled time.
It says here that they're individual.
Individual.
How many of them?
I didn't work with you. That's all you really do.
Is it just a toilet and a sink, no shower?
I don't think it has a shower. Well, if you stayed at 6 o'clock and the sprayer went off, you have a shower. A lot of options here, a lot of options.
Okay, and it's not big enough for people to have relations?
It'd be a typo or some shit. It'd be a-
Well,
5251, yes.
You gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, we gotta start some.
I mean, you gotta think of these things.
They got it figured out. They've been working hard on it.
There's the inside of
It
it.
says here it's austere and uncomfortable.
Is that a person?
And that's the
No.
reason you put them
It's a
there.
shadow.
Yeah.
Because they're
Doesn't look
uncomfortable.
like a man.
Yeah, I mean, you don't
It's
want
the
to go
shadow
congregate
person
there.
taking the photo.
It's austere and uncomfortable.
But that's, it's like someone's
And that's-
hanging out next to the toilet.
There. Easy to clean and maintain, inexpensive to install and run.
Let's bring the presentation back. I think I'm gonna. Real quick, this thing.
You
wanted us to skip to the.
Right.
There you
Well,
go.
Thomas County, you look at it on your own. But, yeah. But again,
Smart interest. You got
and
some.
if you have questions, concerns, issues, I'm sure our Parks and Rec director will look at that, but the point of the presentation, the part that I brought it up, is just investing in our parks. Because we feel at the county, some of the parks, Mancini Park, we're doing a walkway, and a, new playground structure there. $450,000 that the city of Modesto helped out with. Just things that we can't, I think all of us, when we in this room and private think economic development, I get it, commerce, business, jobs, but there's a quality of life aspect to it. And I think that really spurs economic development as well. It's a, multifaceted approach to economic development. People have to feel safe, people have to feel comfortable, people have to feel that they have things to do here, and then obviously earn that wage. That's what's gonna bring the talent here. And so we want to do talent to industry exchange, childcare. After the pandemic, we've seen many of these places kind of shutter. They're not providing those services. That's a huge impediment to our working professionals. Because the cost of childcare is so high that if you're a dual household income, it's that uncomfortable discussion of who's gonna work and who's gonna stay home with the kids. And that shouldn't be a discussion that one should have. They should be able to get their professional wage that they've worked hard for, whether it's through schooling, training, or just the opportunity to get a job and get a livelihood rather than having to stay home because childcare costs so much. So the county's looking at ways to streamline the processes. If you want to become an employer, we're already working with few employers, can't make that public yet, but few employers, they want the county to help out putting childcare facilities that they would obviously invest in at their place of employment. So how nice is that, right? Whether the county partakes in doing it themselves, I can't say at this time, but the benefit to that is if you're an employer and you work and you know your child's in the building next door, in the room next door, and just a peace of mind that one gets while they're earning a wage, seeing that their children are taken care of. So childcare is something that we are really lacking in. So we hired a company through STAN 2030 called Nurture. And we just gave them a contract on Tuesday. I think it's $150,000 to $200,000, but that's what they specialize in, how to streamline processes so that new childcare facilities that want to come in, kind of the permitting process, because it's gotten so difficult. It's gotten so difficult just opening up a childcare facility, and it's even more difficult if you want this type of things that I was accustomed to growing up, where the neighbors had, they watched 4 kids and everybody paid them $200. Just can't do that anymore because of there's so many different
So
things.
many things.
I hope we were back to simpler times where we could do that, but it's just difficult. We've become a pretty litigious society, so everybody's really worried about that kind of stuff. And so the county's investing in that as well. So those are things that are coming from STAN 2030. Haven't invested all. somebody comes up with a great idea or something else that's really happening, that's what we have the reserves for. So please, be our advocates on this. I know the county always gets blamed for, they just hoard money in that. We don't, we're not going to this time either. And I can say that, and I'm a believer since I went over to the dark side, as a city councilman, I used to think that too. Now living it, I see that there is a method to the madness, and the reason why we keep strong reserve, and keep, strong, money aside to make sure that if something's really taken off, we can just go as a board and say, let's spend this money. Again, without not thinking about it. Yes. Thank you. But that's economic development in Stanislaus County and District 4 in a Reader's Digest version. Anybody else has questions? I know a lot of your members, all of you are very attuned to what's happening in economic development. More than happy to meet with anybody, talk about this, I think I've given, outside of just being a Portland Lou expert, I've become kind of a Stan 2030 expert just because people want to know where their money's being spent and how they're going to get a return on that money. And I'm the first one to say, if we're not getting the return on the money, then we need to shift our ways to make sure that we're getting the most out of it.
What's the North County corridor coming? What is that? Because I realize that's one of the biggest problems. We don't have enough open land and access to 90 mountains. When is that's been going on for 20 years?
It is, and I was on a call this morning, right away hearings. That's our biggest issue right now. And if you've seen, I know, Bob, you come to a lot of, as Katham and Justin come to the board meetings. Those are most of the contentious parts of that conversation. 28 is not going to be any different. It's just getting right away acquisitions for the North County corridor to get that land so that it can come to fruition. But that's our number one transportation priority.
We don't want to turn it into high-speed rail. It's going to sit and not get done. And that's a project that works for a long time.
No, we haven't said that. No, 100%. Just to give me some assurance, that's the number one priority right now with the transportation. 132, obviously we have other phases, but at least one of the major phases has taken some of the traffic off of 99 North County corridor, the Faith Home Garner Bridge. Those all align into the counties and Stancock's priorities. It's not coming high speed road.
Manny, you mentioned annexations earlier, but in a different context. Any notion that the city or the county and the cities would renegotiate the property tax sharing agreement on annexations and allow the city to keep more of the property taxes?
So, Mr. Beckman, I'm happy to report that we've already done that. We did that about 6 months ago. So all future annexations are at a 50-50 property tax split. Future and previous ones, post 1996. Beautiful. So we've just done that. That's why it was good for Modesto that I went to the dark side, because I was like, hey, Modesto needs money, we need to renegotiate. And I had an ally with Chance, who was on Series City Council. So the formal council members really took it upon themselves, and the board was all supportive. I'm not saying the other three were supportive. It was a 5-0 vote. We did a 50% renegotiation in the property tax, first time since 1996.
Beautiful.
You asked and it happened.
Thank you.
Hey, Manny, is that,
And on future annexations, the cities can still negotiate something that's even more beneficial towards the cities. But this is
50-50 is fair.
50, it was 70-30.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that was not fair.
is that Stanislaus County Rookies Institute report online?
Yeah, so we have a
Yeah.
full on, there's Stan 2030. I can give you.
There's a lot of
No,
Stan
mine-
2030 online. There's a lot of layers to it. I sat on one of the advisory committees there as well.
I think I've forwarded already on that.
Yeah, no, that is, we're on Stan 2030, Stan, it has its own website, I think it's called Stan 2030.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not
but
already.
the website's there. This is gonna be going on probably for the foreseeable couple, 3 months, because we're finally spending the money. Now we have the blueprint, it's called the investment blueprint, and we're doing it in, small. It's not, like I said, it's not the all 30 million, but every week something related to Stan 2030 has been going on since January. And I think at least up to through the month of April, you'll see investments made through the Stan 2030.
I participated in a couple different of the smaller group or advisory group and was just in the meeting on this last week. There's a lot of very comprehensive work being done with a lot of collaborative partners. So the right minds are all wanting to get involved and invested in this.
Private, public, it's a true partnership through private and public, and then the chamber, Opportunity Stanislaus, Workforce Development.
We're all
Community
there.
Foundation, everybody's there.
We're all
It's
there.
chaired by Dylan Oliveira and Yamilet, who's not on the call today, but Amy Bickery is in her place. They were the chair of the care, and the co-chairs of the original committee where we brought everybody in, elected officials. On the also Anthony Canella, former senator, state senator, Kristen Olson, former assembly member. So just a lot of wealth of knowledge in that neighborhood, in that endeavor.
And you touched on transportation and the transition to Stan,
RDA, Santa Claus Regional.
It still throws me off. They did a presentation here not too long ago. And so if you're interested in the changes they've made, they brought me a stack of every new route map there is for the county and the overarching and a couple of the bigger components. And they're all on a rack out in my lobby. So you can go out and pull either the overarching or the individual routes if you have interest on that. And I do hear also many, it's childcare and who's staying home, who can get them and how are we doing it and how do we find the route and the routes, some of the route changes are all in the last couple of months. So
Yeah.
people are still getting used to
So
it.
Vinny, I have a question. H Street was supposed to be here by now, and it's been announced that it's gonna be delayed a couple of years and having to do with the traffic lines and that. Is there anything that the county and the city can work together to speed that up? Because let me back up. When I was here with the chamber, I mean, we go back 12 years. So when we got behind and said, "Hey, let's get this done." And so we were really elated when it like, okay, it's gonna happen. And of course, then the city's gonna spend the money to redo the train station and that. It looks wonderful and all this and that. But in the interim, that organization changed and then merged with 2 or 3 other, and that's probably considered good and that. But the focus back in the beginning was to get the train from Lathrop to here. Of course, Lathrop, Manteca, Ripon here, and then south. In the interim, it's also going to go to Sacramento. So it's going to go a couple of stations up that way and that. And it seems like all the hard work that we did originally, to lobby to get it here, got somewhat confused, not confused, not the right term, but exasperated because they were going to go that way. And so now they're working on, my understanding, they're working on arrangements with the UP to get the rights to use the track more often and yada, yada, yada. But it seems like a lot of bureaucracy. And I know that, maybe some guys are state senators or then, and we don't want it to end up to be, excuse me, the train to nowhere.
Yeah.
And that. And it just seems like that every year it's delayed another year or 2 years. And so my question really is there any way that, city can, because it's going to have a huge impact.
Huge, no, we were really discouraged when the new dates got announced. I know we're already talking to our state partners as far as advocating. One of my colleagues, Vito, who's with the whole 12 years you worked on it, he was right there at the forefront. He sits on the rail, one of the rail commissions, and he's already working. And we're trying to hone it back in where I don't think it will get to 2024, but we don't want it to 2026. We've made that evidently clear, working with our state partners to let that be known, because like you said, we have worked too far, and it's kind of like the thing that we keep, the goalpost keeps evading us, right? Because we've all been working on it. It's like when the courthouse is done, when ACE is here, that's when true economic development can happen in downtown. And so
it seems like you're kind of a stepchild in the whole state. Sacramento is obviously got a lot more oomph. for them. So when they started talking about going that way, all of a sudden it started to,
But I think those dollars are earmarked. I can have more of a conversation with Anthony and Adam. They were the two that really put that together, but I think they can't divert the fund. I mean, I guess they always could, but that was really for this region.
I would, Tricia, I would suggest that you can bring back that agency to update the chamber. Because it used to be once a year they would come in.
They have been coming once a year. They're probably due now.
Yeah, we can get them here and put more pressure on them.
Sure. So on that note, though, Manny, I want to respect your time and everyone else's. If you have time.
But the only thing is so if I got weird like the last 10 minutes, I do it fasting till 12 o'clock, but it's 1 o'clock, so I'm starting to see like twice the crowd. So that's why I'm trying to get some. We have sandwiches over there.
So yeah, we've got food, but I want to thank you for your time today, John.
Just, does the chamber have any announcements before I talk about the next one?
Two things, I guess. The multi-chamber mixer was mentioned. We're having a local multi-chamber mixer next week at Boomers. We have 7 or 8 chambers are coming out, Riverbank, Riverbank, Manteca. It's at Boomers.
Boomers, me and you, Bob, bumper cars. It's all.
Boomers is out. You can see it from 99. It's that one. No, not Phoenix. So Salida, Manteca, Riverbank, Oakdale, Turlock, Ceres, Stanislaus Latino, and Modesto. I think that's the 8 of us, and we'll all be there from 5 to 7. It's next Thursday, 5 to 7. 23rd sounds more right. And next Friday, we're promoting this hard because although walk-ins are welcome, we really need some to register. We have a new member, Bio One. We're doing their ribbon cutting here in our lobby at 11 o'clock on Friday, but we are co-hosting a blood drive with them, and the American Red Cross really needs to know to bring all that equipment out here. We're taking over the common area out here. They need to know we have at least 26 registered. So we're really trying to drive people to register. Send your staff, your teams, please share it outward. They really want to, it's a new opportunity to do something. That's a whole different way of giving back. And I will confirm that other date for you real quick.
Right, while you're doing updates, any other questions for me? As always, you know how to get a hold of me. If you don't, please,
Yeah, thank you.
Nick or myself, you know how to get a hold. Just ask me. Were you ready for legislature? Huh? Were you ready for legislature? I'm happy. You're smart for that.
And last chamber announcement, April 20th is AgAware. And we're back at Ace Ag Pavilion, and we have a great speaker, and I will not be able to tell you her name off the top. Shannon Douglas is what I want to say. But registration's open, and we're driving sponsorships and ticket sales there. So Manny, we really appreciate your time.
Thanks for the opportunity. I hope that. I'll to come back and speak, so.
Never named the Lou after you.
Manny Lou.
Manny Lou.
Kids, people getting a big crap on me all day.
Bye, Manny. Manny, you can take a sandwich and just take the inside.
He paid for the.